NBA, we have some news.
Yeah.
The Pelicans have a couple things going on. They fired Stan Van Gundy.
Yep, Stan the man is gone.
And Zion Williamson and his family are reportedly unhappy.
Yeah, there are members of his family that were unhappy, and then reports came out today that Zion Williamson is unhappy right now with the state of the Pelicans.
Yep. I think they very much underachieved. I don't know if they're putting too much stock in their core players, maybe.
Yeah.
That's the only possibility. Ingram has proven that he can be serviceable. Ball's good. Zion's got to take a hold of this ship and lead them. If he's not gonna do it, then he's gonna have to go somewhere where he's a second option, maybe.
And I have the feeling Zion's probably. I don't think this is the whole issue, but he's probably in the state of mind where he's a little upset from being snubbed from the All-NBA teams.
Okay.
And I think he was one of the when they talked about the snubs, he was one of the three guys. Him, Tatum, and Russell Westbrook were guys that I think could have made. I don't know who I would take out, but they're guys that could have made one of the three teams and didn't. So maybe that could be playing into why it could add to his frustrations. I certainly think he has a case for being frustrated in New Orleans because they did very much underachieve with what was considered to be, a team that very well was capable of at least making the play-ins.
Yes, they should have, but what more do you want? I think the players have got to be and do more. Maybe they can beef up on the depth end. But
I think their bench needs. I think their bench needs a lot more. I think again, like you said, there's a lot of stock in their starting lineup because their starting lineup is on paper is good with Ball and Bledsoe in the backcourt, and then you have Zion, Steven Adams, and Brandon Ingram in the front court. So I don't. I don't really see what more you need on that end. There's a lot of playoff teams that, like, you look at the Washington Wizards, they had a worse front court. They had a far worse starting lineup than the Pelicans. I get they're in a different conference, but
how did Memphis make it? How did Golden State make it?
And I think
Even
it just
San
comes
Antonio,
down. I think it just comes down to depth at that point.
But still, like on paper,
like
the Pelicans very much underachieved. Like you said, they at the very least should have been a play-in team.
Yeah.
And with that, the Wizards also fired head coach Scott Brooks.
Yeah.
I didn't really think their season was entirely his fault, but if they're going for a restructure, I understand
he's
where
been
they're
there
coming
for
from.
a while.
Yeah, it's 5 years, 4 years, something like that.
Something like that. Like enough time that they haven't really succeeded under him.
Yeah.
So
before we move on, who do you blame for the Pelicans season? Like, they fired their coach. What do you think it's just a depth issue? Can they get more out of their players? Because I think they can and they should.
I think it's a depth issue, and I think that they need. I think they need a different voice. I don't think Stan Van Gundy's necessarily the right voice for a lot of NBA teams right now.
Yep.
I didn't necessarily agree with the hire when they brought him in. So I'm gonna go. I think a new coach will certainly help, and they got to focus on the depth.
So Chris Paul is out.
Yeah.
He's put in COVID-19 protocol, so that could be 10 to 14 days.
Yeah.
For LeBron, it wasn't because they found a scenario in which he could come back.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll be the same, or do you think it'll be extended time away?
It all depends on what his exposure is. If his exposure was just, he wasn't wearing a mask at a party, or if he was actually exposed to someone with COVID.
Yeah.
Because if he's exposed to someone with COVID or has COVID, he has to be out the full 14 days.
Yeah.
But if it's a LeBron situation, I think they have to bring him back, because if you brought LeBron back, you have to do the same thing for everyone else.
For sure.
But I don't know. I tend to think, and this is just me speculating, that it's probably a little more serious than LeBron's. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he's definitely in doubt for this series, and
if that's the case, I think the West may be the Clippers to lose, because Paul George pulled up on Utah.
PG13 is here.
Indiana PG13.
And it's PG13. It's not playoff P anymore.
Oh, yeah. This guy's a monster. And if he can continue this, the Clippers are going to be a force, especially with the injuries to Harden and Irving. Harden's back, but he's definitely not playing at 100%.
Yeah.
And Kevin Durant proved that he's currently the best player in basketball.
Yep.
When he pulled up and beat Milwaukee, because this team is worse than the Boston Celtics with the lack of depth. And again, Harden pulled up for 6 points. Either Milwaukee just doesn't want to be there, or
because who else is around Durant?
Yeah.
That, when Harden and Kyrie are both out.
Yeah.
So he is single-handedly, if he single-handedly wins a championship for Brooklyn, I think it's one of the biggest feats that has ever been accomplished in the NBA, because he would have done it on his own.
Better than anything LeBron's ever done, because there's still serious competition. Philadelphia isn't one of those team members. Like Milwaukee, they seem to check out when it matters. Atlanta now has a series lead after being down 26.
And 21 the night before.
Yeah.
Philadelphia was up 2-1, up 21 points in Game 3, looking like they just had to close this one out, go up 3-1, head back to Philly, take care of business, 5-game series.
Yeah. And, the one thing I want to point out is Seth Curry and Trae Young pretty much canceled each other out, and Joel Embiid still pulled up. Atlanta had the better unit as a team, and where was Ben Simmons in all of this?
Where has Ben Simmons been this entire season? It just seems as though that he's not there.
He just got his DPOY nominee and dipped.
He just, at this point, he just seems like he's there for the paychecks and that's it. It seems like he doesn't care. He doesn't care enough to work on some sort of shooting game, because they're just playing hack-a-ben inside, and he's shooting 30% from the free throw line.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. There are big men that shoot better than he does, and I get he's a big guy.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, he's a backcourt player. He should have some sort of shooting ability. He's a number 1 overall pick, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
He should have some sort of confidence in taking a jump shot, he can't.
When you care about team success, you care about improving for your team.
He doesn't care about team success, and I think that's the issue with Philadelphia. I don't think a lot of guys care about team success there, and I think Joel Embiid does, especially after seeing him in 2019 in tears after they lost to the Raptors. But I think at the same time, he's also injured. So his focus right now is on just getting through games right now with the torn meniscus.
And this is where Ben Simmons needs to pull up. But Milwaukee...
He's not that guy.
He's not. Milwaukee and Philadelphia really should make some big moves this offseason, unless somehow they can use these as wake-up calls. Because Milwaukee's... This is their series.
Calls do these guys need, though?
But this is their series to lose along with Philadelphia. If they lose it, again, they have to go through some serious changes. Atlanta currently is the biggest competition of Brooklyn.
Atlanta. I honestly don't know what wake-up calls these teams need. What was losing in 7 games to Toronto not enough for you in 2019? Maybe losing in the first round of Boston last year, was that not enough?
Well, they weren't healthy.
They've given up. Honestly, this is probably the worst 2 games you could ever see in the playoffs. And
Philadelphia
was that not enough?
Incredibly disappointing.
And the same thing with Milwaukee. Was giving up a 2-0 lead in 2019 to the Toronto Raptors not enough? How about last year So
what, you're saying rebuild? What if they
I don't know what they need. I'm not saying
together
rebuild,
and
because
one of them rebuild?
when you have Giannis, when you have Embiid, when you have Simmons, Drew Holiday, all those guys are in the mix for these 2 teams.
Yeah.
Obviously you're not thinking rebuild, because these are very good teams.
Yeah.
Philadelphia just finished with the best record in the East. Milwaukee's finished with the best record in the East the 2 years before that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that these teams need to rebuild, but something's got to happen, because it's definitely not a wake-up call at this point, because if you need 3 wake-up calls to get it through your head, you have bigger problems.
Yeah.
And it's just a lack of caring on their part.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, what if they combine these 2 teams and one of them rebuilt?
I definitely don't think they make those moves. I don't think they can make those moves. Yeah. In theory, it's interesting, but... I don't think taking 2 teams that seem like they've checked out and putting them together, I don't think having a team full of checkouts is going to do anything. Kevin Durant would just find another way to beat them. I just don't get it. I'm baffled. And it's not... Milwaukee got beat by Kevin Durant, who, again, as Giannis said, he's probably the best player in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
Philadelphia got beat by Atlanta, who is the 5th seed, probably wasn't supposed to be this high this year. This team wasn't even invited to the bubble last year. They got better in the offseason.
Yeah, it's a complete turnaround.
But Philadelphia is a force to be reckoned with, or should be at least, and they're not.
The East is a little more interesting to pick from because I think it's clear cut the Clippers get the West. The East,
If Chris Paul isn't there. If Chris Paul is there, Phoenix gets the West, no question.
I think it's going to be a series.
It'll be an interesting series, but I have no doubt in my mind that Phoenix will be able to. The Clippers will be the toughest team they've had to play.
Yeah,
but Phoenix should get through.
So Atlanta, Brooklyn. You think Milwaukee, Philadelphia can do anything?
I'm not going to count them out yet.
Okay, yeah. So the East is still wide open. I think any team can come out of the East.
I could see any sort of matchup there.
Yeah. Whereas the West is a little more clear cut. In terms of who wins the West,
the Western Conference Finals matchup is clear cut at this point.
Yes, it depends. Yeah. Who wins is dependent on Chris Paul.
Yeah.
But even with him back, it's still going to be a series.
Oh, it's going to be a good series. But yeah, if he's not there, I don't really think the Clippers have very much competition. But at the same time, I'm not going to count out Utah quite yet.
No.
But the Clippers look as good as they ever have.
Utah can win the series if Kawhi stays out. Yeah. As great as PG was last night, I'm not saying you can't depend on him. Utah's just a deeper team.
And that they have a deeper starting lineup. I think the Clippers have a lot more interesting depth. But in terms of their starting lineup, yeah, Utah's starting lineup without Kawhi Leonard, I would take them over the Clippers starting lineup any day.